You're listening to another episode of the Coaster101 podcast. And folks, I'm going to get right into it. We've got two really great guests this week. It's been a little bit of a hiatus, but when you get guests like we're about to bring on the podcast, you put the puppy in the crate, you let your wife take care of the puppy, and then you got to, get on the podcast because it's not every day you have the opportunity to have guests like this. Right now, Dollywood is in the midst of its 40th season, and for those who may or may not be aware, there is a full-scale documentary that has been released, produced by our good friends at Devin Olson Media. So I'm going to bring on director of the Dollywood Dream, Devin Olson. Devin, welcome to the Coaster101 podcast.
Great to be here.
And we can't talk Dollywood without bringing in somebody who is, I would say from a theme park standpoint, he would probably disagree with me, as much intertwined with the history of Dollywood as Dolly Parton herself. He's also my favorite Kansas Jayhawks fan, but Pete Owens, who is executive producer of the Dollywood Dream. And Pete, remind me of your title with Dollywood one more time.
I'm vice president of marketing and PR, so my fingers are in a lot of different things.
I love it. Well, welcome to the Coaster101 podcast. You've been on my bucket list guests for a long time, so I'm really glad we're making this happen.
I'm glad I can be here.
Awesome. Well, I want to get right into the Dollywood Dream, and Devin, you've got a long history. You and I go way back. We were talking a little bit before we started recording how you and I go back further, and we have known each other for far too long. You did a documentary about 10 years ago at this point, from Fury 325 Dreams to Screams, which is a whole series of documentaries you did. But I want to know kind of your background in the theme park documentary space and how Devin Olson Media has kind of grown from, I don't want to blow your cover here. You were just like us. You were like theme park internet website guy who actually made something of yourself. I don't want to make it sound like that, but you've turned the filmmaking and the video creation into a full scale thing.
Well, it's kind of interesting because I had a lot of obsessions and a lot of hobbies as a kid. Whatever I did, I kind of did 110%. And theme parks was the one that I eventually landed on that stuck. I felt bad for family members who would kind of, center birthday gifts or Christmas gifts around my latest hobby because they never stuck. But something about theme parks, visiting pretty much all the Mid-Atlantic theme parks growing up. That was the hobby that I just couldn't shake. And I'm like, okay, so if I'm going to do this, it needs to be a career. And my first dream was, let me design roller coasters, like a lot of other kids that played Roller Coaster Tycoon at that point in time. And then, unfortunately for me, not the best with math. So I took an AutoCAD class in high school and realized that's not my best route into the theme park world. So I had to find a different way in. And, I think things would have turned out differently maybe if some of those big theme park projects for the Washington, D.C. area ended up getting built, which I'm sure we all know a few of those offhand that never ended up happening. So that would have probably ended up being my route in to work directly at a theme park. But it was kind of this weird roundabout, just the twists and turns of interests and majoring in journalism and just kind of falling in love with those stories of some of the theme parks around me. So it's crazy how that childhood dream of designing roller coasters didn't work out. And yet here I am, the internet's new. I'm wanting to build kind of like a database at that point in time on some different theme parks and roller coasters because that information wasn't easy to come about. And then as fate would have it, someone in high school told me, hey, like you could make videos about them. There's this thing called Windows Movie Maker, and I'd never heard of it. I never knew that my computer came with something where I could actually cut together videos and, borrow one of my dad's digital cameras, which that was also a new thing, to be able to record probably 480p, 480i video and cut it together in Windows Movie Maker. And by the way, there's this new site called YouTube. So all those things kind of collided at that perfect point in time where I was trying to figure out what to do with my life. And majoring in journalism actually helped me out a lot, because that kind of taught me to find the angle in the story and not just to approach it the same way everyone else was. And it's funny. I don't want to spend too much time on that, but just all the different twists and turns of starting to do some pro bono videos. I never majored in business. I didn't really know much about business. I didn't know much about cameras, but those were all things that I just kind of had to overcome and learn about, even if I wouldn't have wanted to learn about them necessarily on their own. Really, for me, it was all about the storytelling. How do I find a way to tell these untold stories? Which I think we could easily just jump far ahead in the story arc that brings us to the Dollywood Dream. I don't want to jump too far ahead, but that kind of was that ultimate story to be told. That story that I think to a lot of people is an unknown, which is surprising. You have one of the most iconic names in the world, Dolly Parton. You have one of the most iconic travel destinations in the world, Dollywood. But if you stop and ask most people, they don't really know how that came about or why that happened. So just we can tie a lot of loose ends together with Pete and I knowing each other, and even you and I knowing each other, going back to that Fury 325 documentary. But it's been fun seeing how all those different interests and all those different paths have collided to create this project.
For sure. And you've done a lot of work for parks over the years. You've done a lot with Hershend, obviously. You've done some work with United Parks and Resorts. I've even seen some things on the Devin Olson Media social media channel. You guys do a lot of work with the Globetrotters, who I know are part of the Hershend family as well. So I think again, you're working with some of the top brands here, which I think for you, it's got to be pretty exciting, right?
It is. I say that it's the childhood dream that I never knew I could have, because a lot of these career paths, just brand storytelling didn't really exist in this current form back when I was growing up in the 90s. So that's why the obvious path to me was design roller coasters, work at a theme park. And it's really cool to kind of be able to carve your own path based on the talents that you have and build a team around that and actually find a niche, because a lot of people have these dreams for what they might want to do with their career. And a lot of people kind of stumble into the theme park world not planning on it. And I'm really interested to hear Pete tell a little bit more about his story, because I learned more about his story, I think, up on stage at the premiere of this documentary. And it's really cool to see how these different talents have brought us all together, from journalism and from broadcast TV and from a 11-year-old kid with a website about theme parks. And once you're in the theme park world, it's kind of hard to get out, because it is this tight-knit community. You bump into a lot of the same people at IAPA from year to year, and it's kind of like 2 or 3 degrees of separation, I feel like. So it's really a cool space to be a part of, and I can't think of too many other industries in the world that are like this cool, destination experience theme park world that we're all involved in some way.
I love it, and I feel the same way. But Pete, I got to talk to you. I mean, you have been with Dollywood in some capacity for how long now?
This is my 26th season.
Holy cow. And this is the park is only 40 seasons old, so you are well over half. But tell us a little about you. How did you kind of get into, the industry, Dollywood specifically, but, take us all the way back. How did you? I mean, not to date you compared to Devin or me, Roller Coaster
I'm
Tycoon
old,
was.
so I
I
don't
didn't.
know how that dates you guys.
I didn't say
But
that, but I was going to say Roller Coaster Tycoon wasn't necessarily a thing when you were growing up. I believe.
oh, sure it was. I was, and I'm still a big gamer. So I mean, there are things actually got. I've actually got the latest Roller Coaster Tycoon on my gaming laptop, and I play it through Steam.
I love this.
So that's just one of the things that I'm into as well. But well, I mean, prior to Dollywood, for 15 years, I worked in television. So was primarily in editorial control of some kind. So, but I started as a nighttime assignment editor in my hometown in Omaha, Nebraska, and then made my way through. Was the youngest news director in the country at a Fox startup in a little town in Iowa in the early '90s, late '80s and early '90s, and then moved across all the way across the country. Was the news director of the AB station in Myrtle Beach, the ABC station in Myrtle Beach, and then decided to move to Knoxville in the mid '90s to become executive producer and assistant news director at the ABC affiliate here, and did that until the millennium. And I was looking for what the next adventure was going to be. And I had a friend that worked at Dollywood that was a former publicist, and my wife convinced me that I should go interview because I was really not interested in interviewing. And she said, just go up there and do that. Go to lunch with them and see what they've got to say. And to the vice president of marketing at the time, Susan Hinchcliffe Whitaker, she was a sneaky kind of person. We went to lunch. I was like, thanks, really appreciate the opportunity. And she called me the same night and said, well, the lunch was kind of an interview, and my HR leader told me that you need to come up and fill out an application. And so I went up about a Saturday or two later, did that, and when I got there, the HR leader at the time, quickly was nervous and flustered and rushed me over to an office and said, well, he's only got a couple of minutes to meet with you. And he walked me into Ken Bell's office, who was the original president of Dollywood. And we were supposed to chat for a couple of minutes, and that was it. And I was going to go home. And we talked for about 2 hours. And I decided that Dollywood felt like the right place for me. I often tell people television is really the kind of industry that it's a do unto others before they do it unto you kind of culture. And Dollywood is very much a golden rule company. And what sold it for me was Ken telling me that no matter how bad his day is, that he always would walk down Show Street and hear people laughing and know that he had something to do with that. And he'd see families that were together, and that's what our goal is, to bring families closer together. And I thought it might be nice to work in the joy business for a little while. And that was going on 26 years ago.
Wow.
And so probably best decision that I ever made. And, I thank and blame my wife all the time at the same time. And it's really been an amazing adventure. And frankly, I do more TV now or real TV now than I did when I was in TV. We have produced and have hosted. I guess we've produced 3 full-length feature films on property in the last about 8 or 9 years, and then did all of the intros for Dolly's other 2 movies, The Coat of Many Colors and Christmas in Many Colors, and then her Netflix series, Heartstrings. We did all the intros at Dollywood for those. And so those are all great. A lot of fun to do that. We do a lot of other production on Park, which is, keeps my creative juices flowing from that perspective. And working with people like Devin also. I mean, we started working together, I don't know, Devin, it's got to be close to 12 or 13 years ago. I think the first thing that we did together. And, he's done some amazing work for Dollywood. Not to mention the work he's done for other parts of Hershend, but the HR campaign things that he did for us in the last couple of years. And then, you have things like the documentary, kind of teaser documentary we did for Fire Chaser, which I just watched the other day, and it's just so good. I mean, it's hard to find people that really understand visual storytelling, and it's really hard to find people that understand the heart of our business. And Devin and his team do both of those things. So, I mean, the documentary that he did for Wildwood Grove was tremendous. But this 40th anniversary Dollywood Dream really has turned out well. Not breaking any news, or maybe I am for Devin. I don't know if he's heard this or not. We were nominated for an Emmy for the Mid-South region of Natus. So fingers crossed on that. And I think we certainly earned it for that. So that's kind of me in a nutshell as to the work that we do now, and especially the work that we do with Devin.
I love it. Well, I got to ask, it is, like I mentioned, the 40th season of Dollywood. With a project like this, is this, Pete, is this you going to Devin? Devin, is this you going to Pete saying, hey, it's 40 years coming up. We've done, park documentaries in the past. Would love to do this. Was it a combination of both? How does something like the Dollywood Dream come to be?
Well, from our standpoint, we knew we wanted to do one, and we also knew that we wouldn't do it with anybody but Devin. So we just figured out a way to do it, and then we had a call, I think, and you guys had some ideas and we just started kind of spitballing some things. And I threw out a couple of things I'd like to see. And then Devin and his team worked with Scott and my team to get it moving.
Devin, what was the timeline process here?
This was kind of like Pete mentioned, about a dozen years in the making, because something really interesting about this documentary is it wasn't a normal project where it's pre-production, production, post-production, and it's kind of this condensed timeline. A lot of it was mining the archives, and Pete and his team, Katie on his team, Scott and all of them pulling together years and years, decades, even going back before the park officially became Dollywood, and just kind of like going through these archives, which was really fascinating. And we'll have to talk a little bit more about that later. But we've been working with Pete and his team now for, like he mentioned, going on a dozen years since Fire Chaser. An interesting story about how I started working with Pete and his team. I'd actually, I'd never really known much about Hershend Family Entertainment until I saw Joel Manby, at that point in time, CEO, on Undercover Boss. And I had dealt with some other companies that didn't really share similar values to mine. And like a lot of people who saw that episode of the show, it's just like, whoa, where's this company been in my life for all these years? And so coincidentally, my alma mater, Liberty University up in little Lynchburg, Virginia, up in the Blue Ridge Mountains. Guess who was coming to speak there a couple years after I graduated? Joel Manby, right after I saw that. So I waited in line to be the last for the book signing. I got his book, Love Works, and got him to sign that, and told him that I wanted to do a documentary on Outlaw Run at Silver Dollar City, and knew a couple folks over there. And he said, I'm in, like, just let my assistant know, and you can do an interview with me. And he set aside a ton of time for that. And the team at Silver Dollar City was just so hospitable. And I'd never really had that, not to talk bad about any other company that I've done work for, but just that level of hospitality. Like, we're inviting you in as a member of our family to come do this, and thank you for being here. And it was such an amazing experience. And then someone at Dollywood or at Hershon Corporate saw that, and I think passed our names along to Pete and his team, and then Fire Chaser was in the works at that point in time. So that's how we got involved with Dollywood and with that initial series. But just to have these teams, especially Pete, Scott, and their team at Dollywood, who are just so trusting. You bring these big ideas to people sometimes, and you can just kind of see their eyes rolling, like, really? We can fit 40 years of history into this little thing. How are we going to do that? So just to have that level of trust over the years for Fire Chaser, for Lightning Rod, Wildwood Grove, which is still one of my all-time favorite projects, and then kind of this milestone piece of the Dollywood Dream documentary has been amazing. And all of those led up to this in the way that we had all these untold stories from over the years. All these kind of, Pete mentioned we've done a lot of work for Dollywood's HR, Dollywood Jobs. And so a lot of those stories got seen by job applicants and internally, but not a lot of people from the outside world, maybe in the enthusiast space or season pass holders, had really gotten a chance to see some of these stories. So we're going through the archives, not only pulling these historic pieces, getting to see Dolly opening the park for the first time, but then we're getting to mine these interviews from over the years about this girl who is special needs, and she'd never really spoken to anyone other than her family members. And here she is talking for the first time to other people because of the kindness of the hosts at Dollywood. And so just to have all these stories from over the years, like this incredible story about two of the hosts that work on the tram at Dollywood, and how they were able to bless these visitors to Pigeon Forge that weren't even planning on going to Dollywood, and they gave them tickets, and come to find out they just lost a baby days earlier. And this was this moment of hope in this couple's life where they were able to come for Christmas and just see the kindness and the love around them. So going back through a lot of those stories that we knew could really impact a larger audience through this documentary was amazing. Combining that with some of these historic pieces, getting to see this actual footage of Dolly there on opening day, opening up the park. And then really from there, it was filling in a lot of the missing pieces by getting to bring these past park presidents back, walking around together. And it was a rare opportunity seeing that, I didn't realize that every single one of the past park presidents was still living near the park in a lot of cases. And so to be able to go through all those years of history with them and have them go back through the reasons that they came to the park and some of those special moments in the park's history was incredible, to be able to hear that firsthand.
So Devin was even able to speak with Ted Miller, who was the original park president of Silver Dollar City, Tennessee. He's a guy that started working for Jack Hershon back in the early 1960s, but he's the guy that really put Dolly and Jack and Pete together, and was the one that really facilitated Dollywood becoming a reality. So to see Ted and Ken and Craig Ross and Eugene Naughton together as they were on Park together. I mean, really, really special. I mean, it's funny because Devin and I had, in a call, just had a conversation, and I said, well, they're all here. They're all around. I'm not sure if they'll want to do it, but it would be really cool, wouldn't it? And of course, Devin and his team thought that's a great way to be able to showcase the consistency of leadership at Dollywood, and the fact that they all believe in the mission and the vision of the park, and really took us to where we are now. I mean, obviously we have grown by leaps and bounds over the last decade, but starting with Ted and ending with Eugene, and the fact that, their strong belief in our vision and mission, and the ability for us to be able to take Dolly's vision and Dolly's dreams and execute those into shows, attractions, but also every day being able to fulfill her desire, her want, her demand for us to treat everyone like they're a member of the family. She wants to make sure that your visit to Dollywood is your best day of the year, and that it's a non-judgmental, welcoming environment for everyone that comes and visits. And I think that, the team takes that very, very seriously. And I very proud of being a member of that team, but also watching our teammates do that on a daily basis. And Devin did such a wonderful job, and has done such a wonderful job through all of the different projects he's worked on for us, showcasing that.
Right. I've got to ask this documentary, and I saw a copy recently before I got to talk to you guys. It times out exactly at 40 minutes, like 40 minutes, 0 seconds. Devin, was that a happy accident or purely on purpose?
I love Easter eggs, and so whether it's the length of a video that ties into the 40 years of the park or something else hidden in there, there's a few of those, but I'm glad that you noticed that.
Of course.
I've had a couple other folks ask about that, and that's really rewarding as a director of something like this when people do pay attention to the details. But it did also flow naturally. I think originally maybe the first cut was like an hour and a half, and it's like, how in the world do we get it down from this? Because everything in there really seemed essential. And I like to say that the better the cutting room floor, the better the finished product. And every piece that we had to cut was something good. That's the toughest part of this documentary, was everything seemed essential that we needed to cut to get it down to a palatable length, for it to be used the way that it is. And just so we don't drown people in details, I'm sure there would be a lot of loyal fans that would watch for any length of time, maybe even a couple hours. But 40 just seemed like that perfect medium for the diehard enthusiast, but also for someone who's just casually curious about the park's history.
Right. And you mentioned the purpose for the video and what it was used for. Can the general public watch this video? And if so, where can they find it right now?
Well, it's on our YouTube channel, on Dollywood's YouTube channel. But one of the things that we were able to do, because it was 40 minutes long, is be able to distribute it to different television stations around our area. Mm-hmm. And they were able to use it as an actual broadcast special.
Oh, wow.
The CBS affiliate in this market aired it multiple times over our anniversary weekend, and they've been able to share it. But that happened in a lot of other markets as well. And it was an opportunity for us to really have more eyeballs on it before folks just happened upon it on our YouTube channel.
I love it. And yeah, we will definitely link that YouTube link in the show notes and on our website. But Devin, I got to go back to you because I'm now enamored with the concept of the cutting room floor and how you guys cut effectively a whole second movie's worth of things. And I've got to ask, and I'm sure this is like picking your favorite child, even though you've only got two. What is there something from the cutting room floor that you really, really wish you could get in there? Like you were fighting tooth and nail until this thing was finalized. It's like, I want this moment in here.
I think a lot more of the backstories, because what really captures my attention is getting to know the people on screen that I'm seeing. But unfortunately, with all of the people that told little pieces of Dollywood's history, we just didn't have time to give backstories for each one of them, especially once we get away from the beginning. You know, the beginning is where we can let it breathe a little bit, and we're learning who Jack and Pete Hershend are, and we're learning where Dolly's at in her career, and who Ted Miller is and how he brings them all together, like Pete mentioned earlier. So the further along we get in the timeline, we just couldn't go back to any more backstory, and we just kind of had to introduce people quickly and let them take their piece of the history, let them grab the baton and run with it. So that's my one regret, is that we didn't have time to really get to know people that appeared later on in the park's history, as well as the ones that we saw earlier. So a lot of cool pieces of the park's history. Also, some of the attractions we didn't really have a chance to go into great detail on, because in the end, you kind of have to figure out what's your North Star of the story. And that really is Dolly and her stardom and how that's the story arc, but then the park and it coming from humble beginnings like Dolly, and how it has this parallel story arc that Ted really, really is able to put into words better than I can. But those two tracks are parallel. And as he says in the documentary, the more people love Dolly, the more people love the park, and the more people follow Dolly, the more people follow the park and visit the park. And so there were a lot of things that were kind of sort of tied into that theme, but not directly enough, like getting to hear the history of these cool attractions like the mountain slide winder that I didn't realize was invented actually at the park for the park. But Pete talked about that, and Pete, you know, I got to give him credit. He has every year of the park's timeline memorized to a T, probably from having to recite it as much as he does on a regular basis. But we sat him down in that director's chair, and he ran through literally every year through the 80s, 90s, up until today, up until, you know, next year, pretty much, with the park's timeline. And it was, I don't know how you do it, Pete, but that was impressive. I still can't get over it.
Well, it is. I mean, part of it is because I do it. I've done it through the years. I mean, we've established that I've been here a long time, but part of it is also just, you know, I mean, I find history fascinating. I think the story of the park and what we've been able to do through the years, just amazing in, you know, in our industry, considering that, you know, this is a privately held partnership between Dolly and the Hershends. And it's always been private, and it will always be private. And the things we've been able to do and the growth we've been able to have in that construct, knowing what the rest of our industry is like, is just amazing. And, you know, I mean, I'm not only fascinated with Dollywood, I'm fascinated with lots of other parks, and especially family-owned parks, and, you know, sit on the board of the National Roller Coaster Museum, and we track parks from all over the country and all over the world to make sure that, we can preserve and protect those things that are going away. And we've amassed a really nice archive and are working toward, getting the museum open to the public. But that's hard to do when everything is done by donation. So every dollar that has gone into that's been donated, it has been used to get us to where we are today. And I just find the history of the industry amazing.
And that's just, I mean, Pete, I feel like that's also just being a PR pro, being able to be like, oh yeah, 1997, this is what happened. This is what we served at, this is where we served cinnamon bread that year. Like you're on it. You've got it nailed, which is amazing. Devin, I've got to ask you though, for somebody who may not be as familiar with Dollywood, and I know when I was watching this documentary, you mentioned the moments with the Dollywood host, that the tram operators who gave that family who had just lost their child, and then you talked about the special needs nonverbal guest who basically they went to Dollywood 160 or 175 days a year, and they she kind of gained her voice at Dollywood, and even the story of Dolly's niece, who is still a entertainer at the park today. I want to know from you, Devin, what's something you learned through this whole process that you didn't already know?
That's a tough one, because I have been working with Pete and his team now for going on a dozen years. So I've learned a lot in that time. I think some of the most fascinating things to me are some of maybe the things that were considered or didn't get built, or the dilemmas that the park had. Like, for instance, having a mountain literally in the middle of it and having to figure out, how do we develop around this? Do we go over it? Do we go through it? Do we move it? And in the end, it has to get moved for the park to continue building. So I think just a lot of those little cool facts are fascinating to me that I learned along the way. But then also, just you hit the nail on the head, those heartfelt stories, getting to hear all the ways that the park has changed people's lives, because that really lets you know this is more than a theme park. Like a lot of people in the industry that kind of get the deeper purpose like to say, it's just bricks and mortar until you get the guests there and you get the host there. And then it really does, not to go back to the cliche too much, but it really does become like a family. And this is a place that I've brought my family to, and I just get to sit back and watch that for myself and see my kids having the best day of their year. And I get to see my parents who, they both don't like to ride roller coasters necessarily, especially my mom, but get to see her have one of the best days that she's ever had on vacation, one of her favorite vacations to this day. And, the host going the extra mile when she's gluten intolerant at that point in time and can't eat fried chicken anymore, and one of the hosts stays late to make sure that they can make her fried chicken without gluten in it. And just all these personal stories that I have, and then seeing how millions of other families by this point in time have similar stories. You don't get that from most theme parks. Even the most renowned parks in the world, a lot of the big destination parks outside of Dollywood, yes, it's a great experience. A lot of details are thought through, but it still doesn't have that same kind of feeling you get from going to Dollywood and really feeling like these people legitimately care, not because they're paid to, not because they have to, but because this is their mission.
Yes. And I've been to Dollywood a number of times as well. And I'm not just saying this, Pete, because you're in the little internet window with me, but I totally agree. And that is, to me, is what sets Dollywood apart. It's a reason why, you guys, we just wrapped up the Golden Ticket Awards, and we were talking before the show started that, Pete left Charlotte with, an armful of Golden Ticket placards. But it's things like the best guest experience, and it's things like appealing to families with the, best family roller coaster with Big Bear Mountain. totally there. The mission is there, and the mission that kind of started with this dream 40 plus years ago. I mean, it's practiced, like it's practiced what is preached for real, which is pretty awesome to see.
Very nice of you to say.
Thank you. I've got to ask this question because this is more me. I'm very curious, and like Dollywood, or Dolly Parton rather, she is I'm going to call her a national treasure. She is. I feel like I have to ask this question. Is it surreal to either of you that you get to interact with Dolly Parton, sit her down for an interview? Pete, I know you pop up every year in the when she is at the parade for opening day. Like, is it surreal at all to either of you that you get to be like, yeah, I get to talk to Dolly Parton and I get to, interact with her in this way?
Well, I will tell you, it was at the beginning.
Yes.
I mean, Dolly's an unbelievable, icon for the globe. She's one of the few people that globally everybody knows her by her first name. And, they're all impressed with all of the things she's been able to accomplish in her 79 years. But she's an even better person. And working with her and being able to, experience how smart she is, how creative she is, the things that she thinks about and brings to the table, and just how strong her faith is and how important her family is. She's taken very good care of my family through the years, and she's just a great person, and we work very hard to protect her brand as much as we work to protect Dollywood's brand because, as you said, she is an American treasure, and I feel as if she's going to. She is one of those people that is going to go on for generations, and people will be speaking of her, and I think that is amazing to think of where she came from, and also, I mean, I will tell you, amazing to see. It's really kind of the American dream story. And she was able to decide what she wanted to become and become that because of where she's from.
Got it. I love it. That is fantastic. Devin, I mean, do you feel the same way? I mean, you sat down with her for a number of interviews. Do you kind of feel, is it still surreal for you, or you kind of...
With Dolly, she's larger than life in so many ways that Pete was talking about. And then when you're sitting there with her, it's like she makes you so comfortable. So many people said the same thing when we were talking to them about Dolly for the documentary. You almost forget that she's that international icon because she makes everyone in the room so comfortable. She knows, I don't even want to say how to work a room because that sounds a little superficial, but she knows how to look each person in the room in the eyes like she's your aunt, and talk to you like she's a family member. And so I think that theme of family really does come from the Hershins and also from her, because that's what she does when she goes into a room. And this story of a girl from Sevier County who had a dream and who got on that bus and went to Nashville, and believed in that dream enough to actually see it come through despite all the challenges that she's faced. I wish that more people knew the grit in that story and knew what she's been up against, because it's so easy to see what she is now, and it's really easy to forget where she came from sometimes. So I hope that in some small way, this documentary is a reminder of that. Just like the new Dolly Parton experience, anyone that hasn't checked that out and maybe hasn't been to the park, one of the first things you've got to do is go experience a little piece of her story and of her life, the way that the team has done it so well, where you get to actually sit there on the bus to Nashville, which is where we ended up doing half of the interviews for this, because it is such an iconic scene, not only in the park, but in her life. And you get to see how she wasn't guaranteed success the same way that this little tiny mountain attraction was never guaranteed success. And things were so fragile for so many years for it. And it came very close to going extinct a couple times along the way, because of events that pushed it to the limit before it was well known. So it's really inspiring getting to hear these stories firsthand, and see how, if you not only believe in a dream, but you believe in it enough to put in the work, even when it looks like it might not come true, those are a lot of the dreams that succeed. And one thought I'll kind of leave us with a little bit, I know there might be a couple more questions, but in one of the recent projects that we did, the Wildwood Grove documentary a couple years back, I asked her, what advice would you give to that little girl that wants to follow in your footsteps and has that dream? And her answer, just like I mentioned, kind of like your aunt, it was so practical and down to earth. It was, not every dream is for everyone. And she's had to pay her dues just like anyone else to see this dream come true. And she always hoped that it would, but there was no guarantee of that success. So it really has been a picture of that sweat and that hard work and some of those tough decisions that she's had to make over the years, before she was one of the most well-respected people that the world's ever seen, not only in this industry, but in general. So her stories inspired me and so many other people so much. But then at the same time, you're like, this is a family member sitting in front of me. She doesn't act larger than life. So it's kind of that, those two sides of Dolly, the fame, the achievements, the success, but also just, she's so down to earth.
I love it. Devin, I got one more question about the documentary, and then Pete, I've got to do my theme park journalist duty. But Devin, before we wrap this up, I know you've got a whole team around you. Like, it's not just you and Pete sitting in a room over Final Cut Pro saying, this comes in, this goes out. I take some time, shout out your team on this project, because I know it was a Herculean task, and there's a lot of effort behind the scenes.
See, that's the scariest question for me, because I'm so terrified I'm going to leave someone out. I will say, make sure that whenever you guys watch the documentary on YouTube, you keep watching at those end credits, because there are dozens and dozens of names there. But a few of the key players on my side of things, and I'll let Pete speak for his team, but Jenna Olinger, nothing happens without her on our team. And not only is she currently putting together the entire Globetrotters TV and radio broadcast campaign right now, but she's also the producer on pretty much everything that we do on our side of things. Tawan Brown, a name that I've probably mentioned a lot, and you've interviewed him in the past. He is the man with the vision behind the camera. He put together the entire soundtrack. None of that is stock music, by the way. That's all out of the brain of Tawan, and he did it all in a matter of weeks between projects. So I can never say enough about him. We have Matt Walker, who helps with all things gear related, lighting related, just so many people. And I'll just kind of leave the list off there, because I really don't want to leave out anyone else than I have already. But you're right. It's a team effort.
For sure. It's funny. You mentioned Jenna does everything. Jenna actually was the one who helped kind of coordinate this whole recording. And she told me that, Tawan wasn't able to make it because he's got another project he's working on, or he's on a shoot. And I told her that I was only a little offended. So if you can relay the same message to Tawan, that would be great.
Oh, I'll send him the link when this goes up. But Jenna would also be here if she had a voice right now. But unfortunately, she's sick. And I do regret that Tawan can't be here, because he'd definitely bring another really interesting angle and an interesting perspective of the production to it. But maybe we'll get them on the next one.
That's what I'm saying. That's another reason for you guys to come back, for sure.
Absolutely. Anytime.
Pete, anybody from the Dollywood side who you want to recognize for the production of this documentary?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, Devin mentioned it before, but Katie Blankenship is a content producer for us that does lots of different things, but she's the one that went through all of the archives, found still images and video, and really was able to find some things, get some things converted so that Devin can use them within the documentary. Scott Durand, who is my consumer marketing director, but my partner in crime in a lot of different things. We work together on the Mountain Tough, the telethon that we did after the fires in 2016, and we were lucky to win an Emmy for that. So he's an old TV guy like I am, and was invaluable in making sure we got all of this done. But like Devin, there's so many folks that helped. It's hard, and I would say, the other group to thank is really the park presidents. They're the ones that inspired this whole thing along with Dolly, and so them allowing to all participate is an amazing thing because they certainly didn't have to, and they gave of their time to be able to do that. So I really appreciate them as well.
Perfect. And we're reaching the end of the show, and I would not be doing my theme park journalism due diligence. We've obviously talked a lot about the first 40 seasons of Dollywood. There's a little something in the back of Wildwood Grove right now that I believe you guys are making an announcement on September 17th. Is that correct?
That's correct. September 17th, we'll be talking about our 2026 project. I can tell you a couple of things. It is the largest single attraction that we've ever built. It actually is going to be more than all of the original Wildwood Grove cost in 2019. So that'll give you a little idea on scope. We're viewing this project as a 40 to 50 year attraction. This is something like a Blazing Fury that we think families are going to tell us that it is a tradition for their family. It's something that the whole family is going to be able to ride. It is a continuation of our Wildwood Grove universe. So you'll be introduced to a couple of new characters within that universe. But it's an amazing attraction. And I really can't wait for folks to set foot in a 44,000 square foot indoor building and have an experience that you can't have anywhere else but Dollywood.
I'm not even going to ask any further questions because I know you are such a PR wizard that I will not get any answers. So I'm going to live with that. I know John from our team will be at the announcement, so maybe he can get a little more out of you after the cat's out of the bag, so to speak. But Devin, Pete, I really want to thank you guys both for joining me on the Coaster 101 podcast. Like we mentioned, the Dollywood Dream, look for it on Dollywood's YouTube channel. Also, make sure you're following Dollywood on all forms of social media. You're following Devin Olson Media on all forms of social media, and that's OLSON, DEVIN, OLSON. I think I spelled those right, Devin?
That's it. Yep.
All right,
the
cool.
twins really messed it up for my family, but yeah, it's OLSON, not EN.
Perfect. So go give them a follow as well. And that's going to do it for this week's episode of the Coaster 101 podcast. Make sure that you're liking, rating, reviewing, subscribing, and doing all of those other podcast buzzwords so we can continue to build our audience. And when we continue to build our audience, we get great guests like Devin and Pete on. Also, be sure to follow Coaster 101 on social media. We are at Coaster 101, spelled like Coaster 101. And then last but certainly not least, head to coaster101.com for the latest and greatest and theme park news, reviews, interviews, and other words that end in EWS. And one final shout out to Justin Mabry of JM Music Design for our theme music. Devin, Pete, thank you guys again, and we look forward to doing this again soon. See ya.
Sounds great. Thanks for having me.